And so it's going to be. I actually am looking forward to what you have to share to see what you thought of it. But does anybody want to kick us off today for the wrap up of The Courage to Be Disliked?
And I'll dive in on
Go
it.
for it.
This at the very beginning of the book when he said this book has the potential to change a life. Like I think I just put it on that pedestal this whole way through this whole journey of just thinking like, okay, how are we gonna do this? And it's in a limbo status. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Like you said, it's gonna be no, like I think there's a lot of like I've said from some of the other ones, when I'm going through it, like in the moment, it's like my gears start clicking and it's like it understands what it's trying to say, and then I get away from it for a couple minutes, then it's gone. And they allude to that in there a little bit where it's like without the daily practice of this Adlerian psychology, it's going to be very hard. And I fully agree with that one. And but I think one of the coolest parts where I could relate with or really enjoyed was towards the end there when he's talking about so many people look at their journey in this linear fashion, whether it's climbing the mountain or whatever. And the reality is, it's just a series of dots, and you need to be in the here and the now. And I think there's so much truth to that, where there is so much time, effort, and energy that everyone spends worrying about the past, which is done, worrying about the future, which is yet to be created, and they're losing what they actually have control over right now. We've heard this to an extent in other books of just like the actions and things that you take right now are truly what are going to impact and dictate where you're going in the future. And so, as I was going through this book, and I honestly wish I understood this at a better level. Like I truly do. I think I do believe there's a lot to be get out of this. And then in the afterword, when he was talking about how this guy originally found it, when he found this book of I think it was Kishimi's original book on Adlerian, and that's how this book ultimately came to be. If you read those last couple pages or listened to the last couple in the afterword there of how this book truly came to be and how he discovered it and just went on this 10-year journey absorbing as much that he could find on Adlerian psychology, but specifically Kashimi's approach to like he dove all in on this. And it makes sense. Like he gets, and you know, I don't have no intentions of diving on a 10-year journey. Like it scratched the surface for me. I'm fine. Like here we go. Like I'm not going to be, but I do think the piece of just not knowing life is linear. It is a series of dots, and being able to look back at my life then as a series of dots instead of the linear line that has gotten me here. No, there's been bumps, there's bruises, there's been highs and lows, there's been all sorts of things. But if I put it in that capacity, those are just dots and moments in time, and the future, who knows where that's going to go. But what am I going to do today? That was kind of a refreshing on that side of it. And I did really like the piece there where it was talking about what is happiness, and it's you finding, I forget how exactly I phrase it, but can you be useful to somebody else? And I forget how he exactly phrased it. That wasn't it, but that was the concept that I got out of it is where are you going to find fulfillment? Where are you going to find happiness? And it's are you able to leave somebody better off? Whether you even realize you do or you don't. Are the actions and things that you're taking positively impacting somebody else? And I think that overall is a good piece. And I really resonated with that piece because that is what we try and do every day in my interactions with our clients. And every want to leave them better off, want to leave it on a high note. And he even alluded to it. There's always going to be, what is it? In Judaism, they preach there's going to be 10 people in a room. You're going to connect really well with two of them. Seven of them are going to be neutral, and one of them is going to dislike you no matter what. And if you're going to spend all your time worrying about the one person, you're going to miss all the other joys of life. And that was a good reminder of the lesson because, right, today is the 12-year anniversary from taking over the office. And I reflect back on that, where in the beginning, I tried to help everybody with everything and make everybody happy. And I realized as much as I want to try and do that, and that's ultimately the goal, but knowing that there's always going to be that subsection of people that no matter what you do, you are never going to be able to make happy. You can go above and beyond way more than you would do and they're still not going to be happy. And that's okay. That's their loss. And being able to transition that instead of internalizing it, just okay, move on. Let's focus on the people that I can help that do appreciate the time and the effort and the energy. Surround myself with those individuals because that's where in the here and now, I'm going to get more joy out of life, and I should. And so, from that standpoint, it was an interesting book, an interesting read. I'm thrilled that it's done because I want to get back into something that truly sticks with me. Because it's like there, as I mentioned before, there's so many other books that I can immediately think back to, like, oh, I remember reading this. Like this one is just, it's almost one ear and out the other for me. Like not 100%, but it's not sinking in, and I'm having a hard time truly grasping the concepts once I step away from it. And so when I'm in it, okay. But as soon as I get away from it, gone, like whatever. So, anyways, it's wasn't loved, wasn't hated. I'd give it a 6. It was more positive than negative. Like got a few things out of it, but yeah, one that I'm thrilled to be moving on to the next one here next week. So
Six is a
there you
healthy
go,
number. 6 is a healthy number. I think that's good. I didn't think you were going to rate it as high as a 6, so I think that's pretty good. I
You
thought that
know
was going to be
what?
a
I
little
will
number.
say though, it's kind of as somebody who, didn't even get into the book. I even getting your takeaways, I would have thought it would have had like a better, I guess, review in general because just hearing over the last couple of weeks, like you guys saying everything, how it's like impacting you, oh, I should treat my children this way and everything. It's giving me Let Them vibes, like by Mel Robbins, like just oh let them,
Written entirely different. But
really? Well, it's so funny because the takeaways or like the general idea of like, oh, if they're gonna be like this, let them. Most people are gonna hate you. Da, da, da. It was giving me Let Them vibes, but it's funny that obviously you're not having the reaction to this book that you did have to Let Them vibes. So
That's a
that was
really
a
good
bunch of
point. You know what?
different.
Now you're saying it, there are like connections between that, let them, and this in terms of maybe not necessarily the whole concept of it, but you're right because it's all about like living authentically, and talking about like freedom from different thought processes and kind of like letting yourself be you,
mhm.
contribution, things like that, confidence. So that's from Mel Robbins. I mean, that's actually I never thought about that. That was actually really good. It's a good
Here's
connection.
how this book is written, Lola. I just opened it up to a random page, and here is if your life or mine, for that matter, were to come and end here and now, it would not do to refer to either of them as unhappy. Like that's how the book is written. And it's like you really have to be, it's jumping all over, like in the set. I don't know.
So what you're telling
It
me is
took
one
a
of those
lot.
books you don't have to read it chronologically. You can just open it up anywhere and go on from there.
No, I would go chronological, but
Oh.
it's one that I truly both listening and reading. I don't think I could have gotten through this one either way if I was just listening or just reading. Like it required my 100% focus. Like there have been some of those books, like Nate Bargatze's last year. That was a very easy one to listen to. 'Cause, right? It's
Mhm.
just his autobiography. Like he's a comedian, he tells it funny, it's whatever. Like that's how Green Lights was. I did get a lot more about it. That was the first one that I started the reading and listening to. Other books that I found, like, yeah, just reading would be fine, but I do enjoy the auditory, aspect to it now. But no, there's no way I I would have been wandering so much if I was not listening to it. In
And
front of me,
reading.
I could not have gotten through this one without it.
Well, you got through it, so that's good. It's
Well, you
definitely
got
a good thing. And actually, yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. So like I when I hear you talk about it, kind of like Lola said, I actually thought you were gonna have a worse rating. But when I think about the way that the things that you said throughout it, I can see where you're coming from with that.
yeah.
Because I felt like the end of the book was more or less written almost like I feel like they were trying to wrap up and kind of like do almost like a summary of it because I felt like the themes of all of them were being repeated over and over again. Like the last part was really talking again about like how like the feeling of contribution and like how your self-worth is based on your contribution, which I don't necessarily I don't know if I feel that is a true statement or not a true statement. I don't know. I guess I didn't give it enough thought, but like I kind of the first thought was kind of like so my self-worth is defined as how much I give to others or how much others find me valuable to to what they need and what that looks like. So that was the part. So the ending, I didn't really love how they went into it because I felt like it was again like almost repeated throughout there. But what I did like was how she kind or how the author kind of like brought everything together in terms of why they went over all these things the way that they went over it. Because I think at the end of the day, for me, the message throughout the whole book was being wrapped up into really one word would be authentic. Like you're trying, how do you create your authentic self? And not only then can you then create your true freedom, and whatever you define the contribution as and your worth as, that's where then you can then decide what that freedom looks like for yourself. So that's kind of how I took the end of the book. I did like how she kind of, I think it's a she, right? Is it a guy or a girl? They kind of brought it all together, but I did not like the end of it, if that makes sense. So that was kind of where I am. I don't know that I agree with all the concepts, but I do. This is the first time I read a book where it's kind of being told as like I'm watching, like you guys had said before, like a podcast. I didn't listen to it, I read it, but it took a little while to get into that kind of rhythm. But I actually really liked how it was kind of positioned that way. I felt I got more out of it because it was like too. I have a problem when I'm reading. Sometimes I get lost in the words and I just realized I read 10 pages and not listened to one thing that they were telling me. And so I had to go back and reread 10 pages. So this is the first time I've actually paid attention to the whole thing because I was actually reading two different stories essentially, you know. So I liked it that in that regard. So I agree with the things you said, and I think it was a good book overall. I like it. Will I go back and read it a second time? Probably not, but it was a good book overall.
Well, as you mentioned, remind me of one other thing here too. And I know Ron at the beginning, you had talked about how like you wanted to just jump through the speakers and wring the young guy's neck because he just was driving you nuts. And I could relate to that at the beginning. Towards the end, I came to appreciate it because as the young kid is asking these questions, questioning what does this guy mean, I found myself being like, yeah, what do you mean? Like I could relate more with the young kid instead of him just being this obnoxious the way his approach, but I was like, all right, yeah, ask him because I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? Like, so came to
Ask him again,
appreciate
one more
his
time. What does he mean?
yeah.
That's funny.
I'll go. Um, cannot wait. Um, already done my preview. Uh, you know, I think it was a good book. It was a good book, and
Ah.
as yeah, that's the net. And that's not not trying to grow some mushrooms underneath it or create a little shade. It's a good book. I agree with what Chris said. When I read a book, I like to be really engaged. I don't know if you've ever driven a car. I used to have, or I had a look back in the day when you got a company car. I had my company car, and I'm traveling down right near San Francisco International Airport. Busy, 11 o'clock in the morning. Traffic is just going into the Silicon Valley, and it was an older Chevrolet, and the transmission started to slip. You could feel it. And it wasn't making any, it just, traffic would stop and then you'd hit the accelerator and it would go. And then all of a sudden you'd hit the accelerator and nothing's happening. Or you feel the push from the tranny in the back. And I felt that this was similar in that book. The car would go, you'd hope it would get better, and it would. And then all of a sudden you'd feel it slip. And you feel that transmission slip a little bit. Like it wouldn't pass from first gear to second gear smoothly. But once you got out there and you were moving, it went. And so I felt there was a lot of that. And so that's where I've upgraded it to really good. I agree, Chris, that life is, and I resonated with that at the end. Life is not, I mean, you can look at it, your life, one's life, in a very linear way. Yesterday, case in point with the book, I received a telephone call from a very, very good friend of mine. He's 20 years younger, and I could consider him, very, very good friend and mentee. And he's a big Morgan Stanley kind of guy, account executive, senior vice president, 50 years old, keep the name withheld, and had some recent family things with him and his parents, wife, and he just gushed. And I was able just to sit there and receive it, not take on any task, but just listen to it. My heart went out. And I felt very deeply because I felt in those non-linear way, but on those different data points in Ron's past, I had walked there, I had been there. And it was for the first time that a lot of the things that I went through had a pass through. I could see that, okay, that even if it was just for me to have experienced that, and for me now to hear someone who is younger than me who's now walking through this, um, it just it settled that data point for me that had been dormant for a while, just to be able to hear from him and just to listen and let him go through that level of conversation. I think overall with Adlerism, I wasn't a psych major in college. I was an econ business major. Psych was something the other guys in the other suite did, or the girls upstairs in their dormitory. And that's great if you were a psych major and you kind of, a little weird maybe, or you're having lunch and you felt, you were being psychoanalyzed in practice by them. Anyway, bottom line is that you know, I don't, there was a lot that I was able to take and extract out of it and fortify for myself. That's why I put it in the really good category, because it was meaningful, it was substantive, and it reminded me of, yeah, I don't have to be in the task. That's somebody else's task. That was, you can tell I keep repeating that because it really meant a lot um, for me. I mean, it was just a real connection piece. I think that looking at the differences between Freud and Adler and that whole pathology, as to, whether your DNA, your psychological DNA, your physical DNA, your trauma DNA, whatever. I mean, just all of these DNA things don't add up to the current, but in a way they do. They have shaped you. So you can't be devoid of that. You can't disassociate from that. You have to walk through it. And so there were points in time where philosophically I kept walking my path, and we'd meet up later, kind of where I was at into the book, and we'd get back on the path together, because you live life, and I'm not saying I'm not open to new ideas, but I'm just saying that it was substantive and it reinforced a lot of things that I already knew. I learned a lot of new things. Again, it wasn't a psych major, so learning all of the different branches of psychology was not something that I, back in the day, really paid attention to. I was just, in Psych 101 in college, in my freshman year, I was just, wanting to learn it and move on and get the A or the B so I can move on and get out of my general ed courses. So anyway, but other than that, it was excellent in that realm. And I'm glad that we all were able to grow by it. I really felt that probably of all of the books, this wasn't a big wow, wow, wow book for us, but there was a lot of growth in the book. And I think that's really important.
Well, I love that, Ron.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go next. Ron, that was amazing. I want to echo everything you say, and also Lola about the let them theory. That kind of was the theme for me when I read this book too. So like, not to get like deep or anything, Shannon, but I think that first of all, when I joined the book club, I will tell you straight up, the books you guys were reading, I'm like, what the frick is this book? This is way too above my pay grade. I don't even know what these words mean. But then listening to you guys, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be the smartest person here in British Columbia from you guys. And I was just like, this is so good for me. This is so like, and I was at an event the other night and they said, you're in a book club. I'm like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say, but it was fine because I'm a fitness instructor and I'm all about like, let's just go work out 24/7. So reading a book is not my thing, but I feel like things happen for a reason. And this book was my reason, I think, to this point. And I'm, I don't know how old you are, Ron, but I'm hoping I'm a little bit younger, but I don't know. But
Easy.
okay, but I have in the last 8 months have gone through experiences, not that this is a therapy session, but that have literally broke me. And that's not me. I'm not a crier and I'm not a like, okay, I'm a fixer, I'm a control freak. I'm a like, let's get it done. When you have a lot of kids, you just get like that. But this book, it every single page, I could be like, oh, oh, that's why like so and so doesn't like me. Oh, that's why that turned out that way. And then now at the end of it, like shining a spotlight on where you are right now, I think is probably the most current thing for me. Like obviously we have a past and obviously there's going to be a future, but man, I'm surrounded by people right now that are focused on the past and they're angry and they're upset and you can't change it. You can keep apologizing, but you can't change it. But just like enjoy the journey. Like we're all going to make mistakes. And I loved this book. Like it was just, it grounded me. It like visiting with you guys. I couldn't get on last week because I was swimming in the lake and I had no service, but it just, I don't, all I can really say is I loved this book. Like I loved how it was lined out, like the conversation, because I like two different views. I can't figure out if the philosopher is a man or a woman, but it doesn't really matter. But every little bit was like written for me in my current situation. And I think that's how when you read a book, that's how it is. If you're in this situation right now and this applies to it, great. And Ron, you've already gone through it, but not me. I'm just currently going through this stuff right now. And it was a good reminder for me to realize, hey, you have to be authentically you, and people aren't going to like you. And that's okay. Even people that you love, they're not going to like you. And so I was just like, man, I lacked the courage to be authentic and I lacked the courage probably still. But man, I want to say thank you to you guys for your opinions on it, but also, yeah, this book was amazing for me. And now my husband's listening to me. Oh, but it was really, really good. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, somebody else's turn.
Well, I'm gonna go real quick because I have to jump off here for another meeting. But um, Shannon, I think the biggest thing that I want you to take from this book is to not sell yourself short. Um, and all those thoughts you have in your head that this is above me, that's all a story that you're telling yourself that's not true. It's a big lie. So I think that should be the biggest part of this book, and to be your authentic self. And I think what this book, and it didn't really hit on this very hard, but for what this book did for me, it spoke to my subconscious. And most of the stuff that in the Adler theory is around subconscious and the thoughts that we have and managing the thoughts that we have and putting them in the right place and living in the here and now, and making things happen and not assuming things are going to.
You disappeared, Jay. Frozen. Frozen in time. And he's gone.
He's like, moving on to my call. You see. You're muted and I think you froze again.
No, I
There
don't
we
know
go.
why that. Okay. So anyways, I just feel like, also the way the book was written, I do feel like it was a better listen and read at the same time. Because for me, when you're talking about something through a conversation, um, especially when it comes to philosophy, because philosophers can tend to get very, very deep and above your head, and you kind of got to read between the lines. And I feel like, the Adler philosophy, the way this book was written, is it's a very understandable way to process the way that this philosopher thought about life. And I believe philosophy, it has to become your philosophy, right? Shannon was saying, hey, I gleaned a lot of information from this book. I gleaned a lot of information from what they were, because the book met me where I was at right now. And, Ron's a little bit more experienced and has a little bit more experience in life. And so it met him at a different place. For me, it was a huge validation and reminder that I'm exactly on the right track in my life, and that I need to make adjustments, which I feel like every single human being always needs to be thinking about adjustments that they can make to be a better person. I think as long as you're thinking about how to become a better person in this philosophy, that's all that matters. What other people think about.
You're muted, Jay.
I don't know. I'm not touching anything. If you're living your life on your terms, you don't owe an explanation to anybody else. And if they don't like the terms that you're living your life on, who cares? Because you're never going to make every single person happy. You're not always going to make your wife happy. You're not always going to make your kids happy. You're not always going to make every friend happy. And you got to be okay with that, because if you're happy inside, which is the last thing that he talked about, was happiness. If you're happy inside, that's what this life is about. Is how do we find that happiness, and not always trying to look around the corner for something else that's going to make us happy, to be in the moment that we are and enjoy the things that we have, instead of trying to think about the things that we don't have, which joy and takes our happiness. So I love the book personally. I love the way it was written. Um, you know, the kid got on my nerves a little bit, but I think it was all for effect to kind of argue with the philosopher. But I do like the way the book was written. It was very easy to read, very quick. So I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. And
Shannon, for your ears only, I'm 69.
And then I just wanted to confirm, Jay, the author for The Creative Act is Rick Rubin. He's frozen again.
Dude,
Well, the next
Consumer Cellular to save a few bucks, and not value. Unbelievable.
Well, I'm gonna find out who the author is, because I know there's two Creative Acts and it's a little confusing.
I don't even remember recommending that one. I have to look at a list. I mean, I know when we met, I have to call you. I just have been in meetings, and I've been back-to-back meetings today. So just try to get a hold of me today. I've got to run to another one right now, and then I've got to run to another one in Doral at 4:00.
But that's not for 2 books from now. We still got 1 and 2 before that one. So plenty of time.
So for sure, the next one is Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, and the one after that is Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David.
Yep.
And then I'll confirm the other.
David, yep.
That's posted somewhere, right, Lola?
Yeah, I put it on Facebook and in our chats too. But as soon as I get like the author, I'll verify.
All right, guys, I gotta go.
Bye, Jay. Bye, guys. Have a good week.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th of July. Bye.